My friend Sam is one of the nicest people you'll meet. He lives with his wife in Chatham, and they have a dog, a cat, some nice flowers out front, and a crank-up tower with a hex beam. So my friend Sam is an interesting character. He's a member of the New Providence Amateur Radio Club, which is a club in New Jersey that's made up of former Bell Labs employees. As you know, Bell Labs was the innovation lab that was in a few places in New Jersey. I believe Murray Hill, or there are a few others in New Jersey where they did a lot of innovations, primarily for telecommunications and defense, actually. Anyway, I gave them a presentation about drones, about what you can use drones for. And I remember I also did a video about how to be a better drone pilot using ham radio. Well, he got interested. He wanted me to take a look at his tower with my drone. And I actually said yes. So we went over to his house, and he lives in Chatham. Now, the thing is, he lives right on the edge of, I believe it's Chatham Township and Chatham Borough, where he's basically in two municipalities. But he also lives right on the edge of the circle for Morristown Municipal Airport. So to get to fly, I had to file a LANC authorization with the FAA. I used Kitty Hawk, and we got up in the air and performed the inspection, no problem. He has some pretty tight quarters in the back. His yard was covered with trees, so I had to be careful to navigate that, and also the wire antennas as well too. So let's go and take a look and see what we found. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this little virtual tour of his station. So the very first thing we started looking at was the tower, and here we can actually see some surface rust on the tower, which is probably not a big deal, but as a crank-up tower moves up and down, it actually kind of scrapes off some of the galvanizing, exposing the area to rust. So that is always something to watch out for. And it always behooves you to actually inspect this tower to make sure surface rust doesn't become something more serious. The next thing we looked at were bolts. So you want to make sure that these bolts are healthy, they're not rusty, they're not sheared off. And you can get a pretty good idea by just looking at them here. It's a little difficult to keep the drone steady. So I looked at one bolt, and that bolt holds the cable, so you really want to make sure that it's secure. Alright, we're going to briefly look at the other bolt that also holds the cable. Now this is the cable that actually holds the tower up. Alright, that seems good. Had a little bit of surface rust. Going up next to the rotor. I was kind of slow here because I didn't want to hit any trees, but you know, you also want to make sure that you get some stuff here. So the rotor far out looks good. And next I did a close-up of the rotor. That looks good. It looks like a brand new rotor, to be quite honest. Brand new mast. So next we're going to go up and take a look at the hex beam. I will have to come out a little bit because I don't want to hit the wires of the hex beam. Alright, so we're going up now, and we're taking our first look at the hex beam far out. You can see here the connection with the coax connector, and it's kind of deceptive because I did move and I did zoom in. You know, when you zoom in, it appears as though you're very close. The connector seems to look good. So the very next thing we did was we looked top down at the antenna, and I wanted to take a look at all of the cords and the wires to make sure they were in good shape, because you know these are exposed to ultraviolet light and they could be damaged quite easily. So here you see me and you see Sam, and we're over there looking and going down, and I descend onto the hex beam. Also look at the fiberglass spreader as well over there, and everything seems to be okay. The spreader seemed to have a little bit of discoloration due to the UV light exposure, which is really not that uncommon. And but the wires seem to be good, at least, which is good. And the cords actually seem to be pretty good too. And we actually took another look at some of the other wires. I began to go over each joint and each attachment point for these wires, just to make sure that nothing's broken, nothing is worn, because ultraviolet light especially could be a problem. I noticed the spreaders were kind of showing that they probably could use a coat of paint, which is probably something he would have to do. Since he has a crank up, it's not too hard. And here you can see the spreaders. And but the wires especially seem to be pretty nice. Next, we're actually going to look at a wire antenna he has for 40 and 80 meters, and where we have some traps on it. So we're going to take a look at those and make sure they're in good shape as well. So here I am trying to look at one trap. I realized that I got it out of frame, but coming up close to it, the traps seem to be pretty good. I mean, the stainless steel bolts seem nice and shiny, so no real corrosion or anything, and the traps didn't seem burned or anything, because he does run power through them, which would be a bad sign if it was burned. The very next thing we looked at was this attachment point for the coax. Now, I did notice something that could be a potential point of failure, and you'll see in a minute. You'll see here you have the coax, the PL259, which is covered in electrical tape. And that electrical tape is already starting to come loose. And I'm thinking that some moisture must have already gotten in there and could have wicked into his coax. We did see some funny stuff on the TDR, although I'm not really 100% sure if it was actually a problem. But if you look here, you can actually see the tape beginning to come loose, and that's not a good sign. Whenever I do my joints, I always make sure that I put the tape in a position where it will not come loose, and I typically put a couple layers in, along with some self-annealing tape, to prevent moisture from getting in. But sometimes even the best efforts are for naught. The other thing we had to look at was this other trap. As you can see, I was having a terrible time focusing and getting the drone kind of to get it in frame, but eventually I did, and this seems okay. I mean, it looks like it has some UV exposure. Doesn't seem to be corroded, doesn't seem to be burnt, which is fine, which is a good sign. So this part seems to be good. So after all of this, I proceeded to land. Of course, I had to land through the trees. I couldn't just auto land. I ended up having to steer this thing all the way down. You could see exactly what a tedious process it was. But it's all part of the game. And we're coming down. See, very close to a tree branch there. And all the way down. You can see Sam's coax. And that house bracket apparently is just to keep it attached to the structure. Probably not for anything structural anyway. So the very next day, I actually went back to Sam's house with my Rig Expert A1400 antenna analyzer to take a look at his system. He claimed that there were some issues in it. I think some of them might have been my personal misinterpretation, or probably his. But let's take a look and see what went down. Okay. Hook him up here. This is nice and tight. Okay, good.
It's tight.
All right. Now,
Let's see what happens.
so first of all, let's just basically do a basic SWR check.
Okay.
Right. Scan the SWRs. Actually,
Hold this down.
let me go here. Yeah, let's go. Oops. Okay, and then we set the range. 10 megahertz. Okay. And then scan the Suarez. Okay. So this right here is your 80 meter.
Okay.
This right here is your 40 meter, I think.
It's telling me it's got 15 to 1.
Yeah. This thing's been crashing all day. Okay. So this right here is your 80 meter, and then you have your 40 meter portion there.
Okay. That's the 40 meter portion, the second one, right?
Yeah. If we do them individually, we could do set the frequency.
We could do 7.125 to 7.250.
Yeah, we could do 7.1 715 oops 07 7150, and then range, set range. So that's for 500 kilohertz. All right, and then we scan SWR. So
Why is this thing throwing a fit?
no, I just pressed it there.
No, this.
So the thing is, a fault might not show up until it's under power,
Okay.
and it might start to arc. But let's run a TDR test and see what we get. So the strange thing is, we're looking at this antenna analysis, and there are a couple problems that actually come to light. First of all, as you'll see, when you start transmitting at lower power levels, the SWR goes up to like 1.5. And then you'll find that, after you transmit for a little while, you'll see the SWR go down. It's kind of intermittent. So that, to me, signals probably some connection that's probably intermittent or broken. Or maybe there's water somewhere, water intrusion. Remember that thing we saw with the electrical tape? So I would really recommend it to him to actually take a look at the connections, probably get somebody up there and cut off the PL259, check the cable for water intrusion, and if it's wet, replace it. And if not, well, of course, you have to replace the connector and reseal it properly. That was the end of that. The SWR charts, they kind of seemed okay. I mean, on 80 meters, his SWR was a little high, but it's probably because his antenna is so low. But we did see something on the TDR, which I'm going to show you coming up. We had, if you look at this graph, you'll see that the step response actually gets lower and lower, which is rather unusual. I don't even know what it means. I'll have to look that up. But if you do have any idea, please leave your comments in the comments below. I'm pretty sure the instrument's working fine, but I don't know. Let me know, okay? All right. TDR stands for time domain reflectometer, but this actually doesn't perform a true TDR measurement. What it does is it actually does the frequency domain and does an inverse, some mathematics, so it actually comes up with the same result as a TDR. What this will do, this will show you essentially faults along the cable. And you can see things like if you have a gradual loss, if you have a short, if you have an open, right?
So I think I'm ordering new cable for the... I have a whole bunch of it sitting here.
Uh-huh.
Would that be affected? I got a mountain of it coiled up here.
No, that wouldn't really affect anything.
Okay.
I mean, you really don't seem to have a lot of it coiled up anyway. This we could also see if there's any effects of water intrusion, because it will show up. You'll just see it gradually rise if there is water intrusion.
I got a QSL card today from Gordon West.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thank you, Cord, for inviting him to our club.
Oh, that's nice. You see, it does the inverse FFT. Okay. So this really doesn't seem to, you know. Here we go.
Here we go.
So 15 meters. Okay. I think that's where it hits your antenna.
So we're talking about 45 feet of cable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see a little thing here, like, you know, like around like here, but this really doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. Let's see. Yeah, the step response is the cumulative one. So things do get a little strange. We actually looked at the hex beam. And remember that TDR graph I showed you from before? Actually, that was from the hex beam. And there seemed to be some sort of thing where you transmit once, you get 1.5 to 1 SWR, and then on the second transmission it goes down. What's up with that? Is that dirty contacts within the amplifier, or is that part of feed line problems? I don't know exactly what the TDR with the step response sharply decreasing means. Like I said, if you know, let me know. Yeah, so we wanna see here, right. Go with the carrier and see, because we want to see.
Just put the mic down?
Well, it's not going to be on SSB. You have to do it on like AM, or if there's like.
Okay. Where is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a reduced power, but.
That's AM, right?
Yeah,
okay.
And let's press.
Just push it down?
Yeah. See if your SWR is wiggling. How's your SWR? Let go. Press again. KC2 OSR testing. Okay. Okay.
The SWR meter down there didn't move.
Well, because this is out of circuit. I think they're saying frequencies in use. Yeah. But the thing about SSB is that it's going to be variable, so the SWR might jump while it's operating. So I don't think there's really anything wrong.
Okay.
So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to 10 to 5 watts. All right, and then press key it. Okay, 1.5 SWR. All right, let go. Change it to 10 watts. Okay, change to 15 watts. Alright, now I guess we gotta change the power level on the amplifier to mid. Okay, now go ahead, key up now. Okay, go higher, 20. SWR's fine, go higher again. 25. Okay, now it's working. 30. Okay. Well, that's it for now. I will definitely try to post an update if Sam does anything with his antennas. But for now, some things remain a mystery. I think he said he was going to replace some of the cable. I think that would be the logical next step. And then we're going to try it again sometime. Hey, if you're in the local New York, New Jersey area and you want me to look at your antennas with the drone, let me know. I'll stop by if you're close enough. Okay? Just gotta let me make a video. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. This is N2RJ, and as always, keep on hammering. See ya.